Okay, let's just jump right in today with something truly shocking. A crime scene, you could almost call it. We're talking about a literal, systematic, court-ordered book burning.
Yeah, by the United States government.
Yeah.
In the 1950s.
It sounds unreal, doesn't it? But this happened. The Federal Drug Administration, the FDA, specifically targeted, collected, and then incinerated, get this, more than 8 tons of scientific literature.
8 tons. Hardcovers, research papers, monographs, all belonging to one quite controversial figure, Dr. Wilhelm Reich.
It's staggering. They didn't just ban his work, they systematically destroyed it with fire, erasing a massive part of his life's work.
And the official line. The government labeled Reich a medical fraud, selling quack devices.
But the real story we're unpacking today, the reason for this, well, frankly, unprecedented suppression, wasn't just about consumer safety, was it?
Not according to Reich and his supporters. They'd argue it was about something far bigger, something fundamental, an energy he claimed to have discovered, an energy he called orgone.
Right. So our mission today is to figure out how a psychoanalyst, someone who started out as Freud's protégé, even challenged Einstein later on. How does that guy end up claiming he's fighting a literal battle of the universe?
Against UFOs, no less, using a strange device he invented. And maybe the weirdest part, why the U.S. military, specifically the Air Force, seemed, as Reich put it, burningly interested in his cosmic war reports.
It's a wild trajectory. It puts Reich at this bizarre intersection of psychoanalysis, physics, medicine, and cosmic conspiracy theories. He pushed boundaries so far, he ended up clashing with the highest powers, both earthly and, allegedly, off-world.
And this persecution, this book burning, it all seems to stem directly from what he claimed about this primordial power, orgone.
Okay, so we have to define orgone, or ORAC, as he sometimes called it, because it's absolutely central to everything Reich thought and did.
It really is.
Yeah.
Reich described orgone as this fundamental, visible, mass-free energy, permeating everything, the entire universe. And crucially, he believed it existed before atomic matter.
Whoa, okay. Before matter itself. So not just an energy within the body or related to life, but cosmic, foundational.
Exactly. He theorized that orgone energy is the actual source of all the forces we do know. It explains life itself, weather patterns, even gravity.
Wait, gravity? How did he explain gravity with orgone?
Get this. He theorized gravitation isn't a simple pull between masses. It's actually just oscillations, like waves, in this constantly rotating universal orgone ocean. Matter itself is sort of condensed orgone, and gravity is how these condensations interact within the larger energy fields.
That's a huge claim, a theory of everything, basically, linking mind, body, weather, the entire cosmos under this one energy.
Pretty much. And here's the hook that keeps you listening. We're going to explore how he tried to prove this energy was real, how he believed it was actively fighting a war against Earth, and why the military seemed genuinely intrigued, maybe even unsurprised, by his absolutely wild findings.
Okay, let's dive into that visibility claim. You said orgone is visible. How on earth did he claim to observe something like that?
Well, his whole path shifted around 1939. He was doing these experiments, sterilizing substances like sand and coal, then heating them. And under the microscope, he observed these microscopic pulsating vesicles radiating energy. He called them bions.
Bions, like little energy packets.
Sort of. He saw them as transitional forms between non-living and living matter, pulsing with this blue energy. That was his first kind of physical glimpse of what he'd later call orgone.
And that led him to build the device everyone associates with him, the orgone accumulator.
Famous, or infamous, and it's crucial to the whole story, especially the lethal battles.
It looks pretty simple from pictures, just layers of materials, right?
Deceptively simple. The mechanism relies on a principle Reich discovered about how different materials interact with orgone. He found that organic materials, think wool, wood, cotton, plastics, they attract and hold orgone energy. They act like insulators.
Okay, organic holds it. What about metals?
Metals like sheet iron, steel, wool, aluminum. They also attract orgone, but they immediately reflect it. They don't hold on to it.
Ah, I see. So you alternate the layers, organic on the outside, metal on the inside.
Exactly. You create an energetic one-way street.
Yeah.
Orgone is drawn in by the outer organic layer. It passes through, hits the inner metal layer, gets reflected inward, hits the next metal layer, reflected inward again, and so on. It gets trapped and concentrated in the center space.
Like an energy greenhouse.
Yeah.
But how did he claim this was visible to the naked eye? That's the part I can't wrap my head around.
This is where it gets really subjective. But Reich insisted it was empirically observable. He built room-sized accumulators and also just used completely sealed, light-tight dark rooms. If you sit inside one, let your eyes adapt for, say, 15 to 30 minutes.
What happens?
He claimed the room doesn't just stay pitch black. It starts to appear bluish-gray. Not blackness, but a distinct color filling the space.
Bluish-gray, like a deep twilight.
Kind of. And he didn't stop there. He meticulously documented seeing slow-moving fog-like shapes, streaks, and these tiny, intensely bright bluish-violet points of light just eliminating, moving within that grayness. He concluded that was the natural color of mass-free orgone energy itself, the energy filling all of space. Space isn't empty and black. It's full blue-gray and shimmering with energy.
That is a profound, almost mystical claim, but he presented it as physics. Which brings us to another radical idea that really annoyed the mainstream physicists, the orgonomic potential.
Right. This is where he directly challenges classical thermodynamics. It's a key concept, so let's try an ELI 5. Think about basic physics like heat.
Okay. Heat flows from hot to cold, high energy to low energy, simple enough.
Right. That's mechanical potential. Higher potential flows down to lower potential until equilibrium. Reich said, okay, that explains dead things, machines, but life works differently. He proposed this orgonomic potential.
And how does that work? The opposite way?
Basically, yes. He argued that a living organism is an energetically stronger system, a higher concentration of orgone than its immediate environment, the surrounding atmospheric orgone ocean.
Okay. So far, so good.
But the living organism constantly draws energy from that surrounding, energetically weaker ocean. It pulls energy up the gradient from lower concentration to higher concentration to maintain its charge.
Wait. That breaks the rules, doesn't it? Energy flowing uphill.
According to classical physics, yes. But Reich insisted that classical physics was incomplete precisely because it only studied dead or isolated systems. Living systems, he argued, actively pull energy against the mechanical flow. That's what keeps them alive and charged.
So life is this constant process of drawing in energy against the current. And if you stop drawing, you decay according to those mechanical laws.
Exactly. You lose your charge, your potential collapses, and entropy takes over. And this constant rhythm of charging up and then discharging energy that connects directly to his universal life formula, the pulsation or orgasm formula.
Ah, yes. This sounds more like his psychoanalytic roots coming back in.
It's the synthesis. He saw this fundamental 4-beat rhythm everywhere in nature. Tension builds up, energy reaches maximum charge, peak discharge occurs, and finally, relaxation.
Tension, charge, discharge, relaxation.
He saw it from the microscopic level. He genuinely believed cell division itself was an orgastic process, this buildup and explosive release all the way up to the macroscopic.
Like the obvious example being?
The sexual orgasm in complex organisms, yeah. That moment of involuntary muscular convulsions is the clearest expression of this full discharge. But he saw this pulsation as the fundamental movement of all living matter. Expansion, pleasure reaching out, followed by contraction, anxiety, displeasure, pulling back.
And health, for Reich, depended entirely on this cycle being free and complete.
Absolutely. When that pulsation is free, the organism is vibrant, healthy, connected, capable of love and pleasure.
Okay, so then, what happens when that pulsation gets blocked, when you can't fully discharge the tension?
That, for Reich, is the root of disease, specifically what he called the cancer biopathy.
He didn't see cancer as just a localized tumor, did he?
No, not at all. That was a fundamental disagreement he had with mainstream medicine. For Reich, the tumor wasn't the cause. It was a late-stage symptom of a much deeper systemic problem. Cancer, he said, was a carcinomatous shrinking biopathy.
Shrinking, meaning the whole organism's energy field is collapsing.
Precisely. A failure of the entire biological energy system to maintain its charge, its expansive pulsation. The organism is literally shrinking energetically, contracting inward, losing its life force.
And what causes this systemic energy failure? Not just random mutation or carcinogens, in his view.
The primary culprit, he argued, was internal. Sexual stasis. Chronic frustration. What he specifically termed orgastic impotence.
Which doesn't just mean mechanical sexual dysfunction, right? It's broader than that.
Much broader. It's the chronic inability to achieve full, involuntary, spontaneous discharge of built-up biological excitation. Not just sexually, but emotionally, too. This chronic blockage, this tension that never fully releases.
It manifests physically?
Yes, as what he famously called character armor. This is chronic, unconscious muscular tension and rigidity throughout the body. Your jaw, your neck, your chest, your pelvis, held tight against feeling, against discharge.
So the psychological armor is literally physical muscle armor, and this armor restricts energy flow.
Exactly. It acts like a bottleneck, reducing the body's overall orgonomic charge and pulsation. It creates energetic stagnation, a feeling of deadness, numbness.
This is pretty profound. Rigidity isn't just mental, it's a physical energy blockage that makes you feel dead inside. And that sets the stage for actual physical disease. How does that link to cancer cells specifically?
This brings us to something he called the T bacilli. These were tiny amoeboid organisms he claimed to find in decaying organic matter and also, crucially, in the blood of all living beings, even healthy ones.
T bacilli, like some kind of pre-cancerous agent.
He saw them more as indicators of decay, of energy breakdown, putrefactive organisms. In a healthy, high-charge pulsating system, the body's natural orgone energy field easily neutralizes these T bacilli, preventing putrefaction. They're kept in check.
So the predisposition to cancer is universal because everyone has these T bacilli.
That was his view, yes. But they only become dangerous when the system's overall energy charge drops due to chronic stasis and armoring. When the orgone field weakens,
the T bacilli take over.
They flourish. They multiply rapidly in that low-energy, stagnant environment, leading to tissue breakdown and putrefaction. And the tumor itself. Reich saw it not as the primary disease, but as a kind of desperate, localized defense reaction by the weakened body trying to wall off this overwhelming tide of decay.
Wow. So the accumulator therapy wasn't aimed at killing the tumor directly?
No. It was aimed at recharging the entire organism, flooding the blood and tissues with concentrated orgone energy from the accumulator box. The goal was to raise the systemic energy level high enough so the body could naturally overcome the T bacilli and the putrefactive process.
Boosting the body's own defenses by literally charging its battery.
That's a good analogy. He did report some successes, particularly in alleviating pain and sometimes shrinking tumors. But he eventually concluded that treating advanced cancer this way was incredibly difficult. The real solution, he felt, lay in prophylaxis.
Prevention?
Yes. Preventing the formation of character armor in the first place, ensuring children grew up with healthy emotional expression and biological energy regulation. That, he believed, was far more effective than trying to reverse a deeply entrenched shrinking biopathy later in life.
So Reich had developed this whole alternative biological reality, but he knew he needed validation from the scientific mainstream, particularly physics, if orgone was going to be accepted, which led him in 1941 to seek out the biggest name there was, Albert Einstein.
Yeah, the Einstein affair, as it's known, is really pivotal. It shows Reich's desperation for legitimacy, but also his maybe inability to bridge the gap with conventional science and his resulting indignation.
What did he hope to achieve by contacting Einstein?
He sent Einstein detailed letters, diagrams, even small models of his orgone devices, like the accumulator. He wasn't just looking for validation. He wanted Einstein's help investigating the phenomena, maybe even securing patents or official funding to protect the discovery from being misused or suppressed by, as Reich saw it, unscrupulous business interests.
Did he present Einstein with specific, measurable physical evidence, something beyond the biological claims?
Yes, he focused heavily on the temperature anomaly inside the accumulator. This was his physical proof. He claimed that the temperature inside a properly constructed accumulator would consistently rise slightly, but significantly, higher than the ambient temperature outside the box, and also higher than a control box.
Without any obvious heat source inside.
Exactly. No heating element, no chemical reactions. He argued this small but persistent temperature difference couldn't be explained by simple convection or insulation alone. It defied standard thermodynamics. He believed this T0 minus T difference, as he called it, was direct, measurable evidence of concentrated orgone energy manifesting as heat, orgone-defying entropy.
So he was basically asking Einstein, the father of relativity, to confirm the existence of a new, non-mechanical cosmic energy that violated known physical laws. That's bold.
Extremely bold. And maybe naive about how science actually works. Reich's own journal entries from that time show how much pressure he felt. He wrote he had absolutely no faith that the matter will be accepted, is too new, too much responsibility.
But he still went ahead.
He felt he had to. His resolve comes through too. Even if Einstein should fail, the cause is not lost. I must then be strong enough to make it by myself. He was prepared for rejection in a way.
And Einstein did fail him. From Reich's perspective, Einstein looked into it.
He did. He had an assistant perform some measurements on the accumulator model Reich sent. But Einstein's conclusion, delivered after back and forth, was entirely conventional.
What did he say caused the temperature difference?
Simple air stratification due to convection currents inside the box. Basically, warm air rising, nothing exotic, no new energy needed, just standard physics.
Ouch. So Einstein dismissed the core physical proof.
Completely. And that led to a final bitter break between them. Reich was furious, indignant. He felt Einstein hadn't truly engaged with the functional living quality he saw and had just applied dead mechanical explanations. It cemented Reich's view that the established physics world was blind to orgone.
So, rejected by the pinnacle of science, the path forward became much rockier. The legal and social battles started heating up around the same time, didn't they?
They did. Even in 1941, he faced charges for a misdemeanor practicing without a license related to his medical work. His reaction then was defiant. Go through with it even if all the patients die, which shows his mindset. But the social persecution, the smear campaigns, that's where his concept of the emotional plague comes in.
The emotional plague. This wasn't just disagreeing critics. He saw it as something more sinister.
Oh, yeah. For Reich, the emotional plague was the active, destructive social manifestation of that character armor we talked about. It wasn't rational disagreement, it was irrational, often secretive, mean-spirited gossip, defamation, and sabotage.
Who did he see as carrying this plague?
Often, disturbingly, former friends, students, colleagues, people who had once been close to the work but then turned against it viciously. He believed they couldn't handle the implications of his discoveries for their own lives, their own repressions.
So it wasn't just professional jealousy, it was a psychological defense mechanism playing out socially.
That was his core argument. Their attacks, he claimed, stemmed from a bad conscience about their own lack of vitality, their own fear of genuine feeling and sexual freedom. They had to destroy the messenger because the message threatened their armor. He felt they were stabbing the proponents of sex economy in the back by defaming them.
He felt completely surrounded by people who were structurally incapable of seeing the truth or actively trying to destroy it. He wrote about feeling cut off from God's life.
Exactly. And this constant battle, this feeling of being besieged by the irrationality of the little man, his term for the armored mass is afraid of freedom, it seems to have pushed him further. If humanity couldn't handle the biological truth, maybe he needed overwhelming physical proof from the cosmos itself.
Which sets the stage for a major and dangerous experimental turn.
Precisely. The psychological war on Earth directly fueled his next big venture, investigating how his life energy, orgone, interacted with the ultimate force of death and decay in the 20th century, nuclear radiation. This leads us straight into the Oriner experiment of 1950-1951.
Oriner, standing for orgone, anti-nuclear radiation.
Or maybe orgone energy versus nuclear radiation. The goal was to see if concentrated orgone could somehow neutralize radioactivity or what the interaction would be. It was incredibly risky.
What did they actually do?
They took small amounts of radioactive material, specifically needles containing radium, and introduced them into a room with a very high concentration of orgone energy, built up by powerful accumulators.
Mixing the supposed life force with atomic decay, what happened?
Chaos. Almost immediately, the environment became intensely agitated. Reich described a massive, high-pitched orgonomic excitation. The energy field became wildly overstimulated, chaotic. He called this dangerous state Oriner.
And it wasn't just the instruments going haywire, it affected the people involved.
Dramatically. The Oriner sickness. Everyone working in or near the experiment became severely ill. Acute symptoms affecting the autonomic nervous system. Extreme nausea, overwhelming anxiety, dangerously feeble pulses, systemic malaise. It got so bad they had to evacuate the entire building at Orgonon, his research center. Even the concrete and steel structure felt somehow glowing and toxic.
That sounds exactly like severe radiation poisoning.
It does. But Reich, in a typically unconventional move, drew a completely different and frankly startling conclusion.
What was his interpretation?
This is the crucial paradoxical finding from Oriner. Reich concluded that what we call radiation sickness is not primarily the direct damage of nuclear radiation, NR, on living tissues. Instead, he argued, it's the result of the living organism's own orgone energy field being violently irritated and thrown into chaos by the NR. It's sickness from over-irradiation with this chaotic Oriner energy.
So the nuclear radiation poisons the orgone energy first, and it's that poisoned, chaotic energy that makes the organism sick.
That was his claim. He saw OR and NR as fundamentally antagonistic cosmic forces. Orgone is the primary creative, life-affirming energy, and nuclear radiation is the secondary, destructive force resulting from the disintegration of matter. They were in opposition.
Okay, that is absolutely wild. Let that sink in for a second. He's saying atomic radiation doesn't just directly wreck your cells. It poisons the fundamental life energy of the universe around you and in you, and that's what causes the sickness. Wow. This idea that there's a toxic, chaotic state of cosmic energy, it really sets the stage for the next, even more incredible phase of his work. We've just heard how Reich believed nuclear energy was actively disrupting the very fabric of life energy, causing this orn or sickness. But if you think that's a disturbing external threat, just wait until you hear who Reich eventually concluded was intentionally spreading a similar kind of cosmic poison from the skies. You definitely want to stick around for that. And hey, while you're pondering that, if you're finding this deep dive fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps us keep bringing you these mind-bending explorations. And consider joining our membership for exclusive content and to support this kind of research.
Welcome back. So the Orner experiment revealed this dangerous, chaotic state of energy. Reich realized this wasn't just something created in a lab. It could happen naturally or be induced on a larger scale. He termed this stagnant, unhealthy state of orgone energy. DOR.
DOR meaning dead orgone.
Exactly, dead orgone. He saw it as cosmic orgone energy that had lost its vitality, become stale, rigid, life-negative. While the intense Orner reaction produced it rapidly, Reich came to believe DOR could accumulate naturally in the atmosphere, especially under certain conditions or due to pollution or other influences.
And this DOR wasn't just inert or passive, it actively caused problems for people and the environment.
Absolutely. Reich attributed specific physical and emotional symptoms to high atmospheric DOR concentrations, what he called DOR sickness. Things like oppressive fatigue, a feeling of emotional deadness or constriction, headaches, nausea. Symptoms often dismissed as the flu or some mysterious virus X.
Okay, so health effects. What about the environment? You mentioned decay.
Yes, he saw DOR as a primary driver of environmental degradation. He claimed it caused rocks to turn black and crumble, a phenomenon he called melanor. More significantly, he believed DOR accumulation was the direct cause of desert formation and persistent drought.
Wait, drought. How does stale energy cause a lack of rain?
He observed that DOR tends to create this heavy, oppressive, almost tangible ceiling in the atmosphere. It feels hazy, smoggy, low energy. This DOR ceiling, he argued, physically blocks the natural upward flow of moisture from the Earth and disrupts the normal atmospheric energy exchange needed for cloud formation and rain.
So deserts aren't just places with no water. They're places choked by this dead energy layer.
That was his radical theory. He specifically studied areas like the Great Basin in the U.S. West and concluded its chronic dryness wasn't just climate, but an active, energetic pathology in atmosphere saturated and suffocated by DOR.
Okay, this is where things take a significant turn towards the extraterrestrial, isn't it? If DOR is causing planetary sickness, Reich started looking for a cause, and he looked up.
He did. Around 1953, his attention was drawn to the increasing reports of flying saucers, or UFOs. He read books like Donald Kehoe's, which detailed sightings and encounters.
What specifically grabbed his interest about UFOs?
Their reported flight characteristics, the incredible speeds, the silent movement, the instantaneous changes in direction, all seem to defy known laws of mechanics and aerodynamics. If they weren't using conventional propulsion,
They must be using orgone.
that was his leap. They had to be harnessing the cosmic orgone energy stream for propulsion, moving with the energy rather than against it mechanically.
Okay, so he accepts they're real and likely advanced craft. But he didn't assume they were friendly visitors, did he? He gave them a specific name. EA.
Right, EA, possibly short for energy alpha or something similar. And no, his conclusion was starkly negative. He came to believe these EA were spaceships operated by beings who were hostile to Earth.
Hostile how? What was their agenda, according to Reich?
He concluded they were waging a kind of secret, unseen war against our planet. Their primary weapon, spreading DOR, intentionally poisoning the atmosphere to cause drought, desertification, and planetary sickness.
Why? To weaken Earth, prepare it for invasion, terraforming.
He speculated about motives, but the core belief was that they were actively engaged in environmental warfare, using DOR as the weapon. This wasn't just natural accumulation anymore, it was deliberate seeding of decay from space.
Did he have any personal experiences that reinforced this belief?
He did report one significant sighting himself. In 1952, before he'd fully formulated the EA theory, he saw an object flash across the sky at incredible speed, southwest to northeast. That, combined with the Kehoe material and his DOR observations, solidified his conviction the Earth was under attack.
So if Earth is under attack, Reich, being Reich, decided he needed to fight back, which leads to the invention of the Cloudbuster.
The Cloudbuster, or formerly the ORAC, Orgone Energy Motor Unit for reversing pathological processes, this was an accumulator. It was an active device designed to manipulate atmospheric orgone.
What did it look like?
Visually, it's striking. A set of long, hollow metal pipes, maybe 10 or 12 feet long, mounted on a turret so they could be aimed. Critically, these pipes were connected by heavy cables to a source of running water, like a stream or lake. Water, especially flowing water, has a strong affinity for orgone, according to Reich.
So pipes aimed at the sky, grounded in water, how is it supposed to work? Like atmospheric acupuncture.
That's a decent analogy. The goal was to use the potential difference between the stagnant door in the atmosphere and the more vibrant energy in the water. By aiming the pipes at door-heavy regions, the device would essentially draw off the stagnant door, grounding it into the water where it could be dissipated.
Sucking the bad energy out of the sky.
Right, and by clearing the door, it would simultaneously allow fresh, healthy orgone, which he believed flowed in currents, particularly a major galactic orgone stream, usually coming from the southwest, to flow back into the area, restoring atmospheric vitality.
And he claimed this actually worked, could make it rain, or even reverse desertification.
He made extraordinary claims, yes. His most famous project was the OR Desert Expedition in Arizona in 1954-55. Working in extremely arid regions, he meticulously documented operations where, after using the cloudbuster to clear Dior, clouds would form, rain would fall, sometimes quite heavily, and dormant grasses would sprout, turning previously barren land green. There are photographs and detailed logs.
Hitting desert green, that's a monumental claim, but did he ever use it directly against these supposed IA attackers?
He did. There's a very specific incident recorded on May 12, 1954. Reich believed he had identified an ES spaceship hovering or moving slowly in the sky. He directed the cloudbuster at it. According to his notes, the process of drawing energy away from the object seemed to directly affect it. He reported the EA flickered, seemed to dim or weaken, and then abruptly moved away at high speed, as if by common command.
Wow. He interpreted that as a direct hit, proof they were vulnerable to his device.
Yes. And also, proof that they were intelligent, aware of his actions, and actively monitoring him. It confirmed his belief in a conscious, hostile presence engaging in this cosmic war.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting regarding the government. He's claiming to fight UFOs with an energy device.
Yeah.
And he tells the military.
He felt obligated to. His assistant, under his direction, compiled reports detailing his findings, the door, the desert making, the EA spaceships, the cloudbuster operations, and delivered them to the Air Force Technical Intelligence Center, ATIC headquarters, at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio.
The heart of U.S. Air Force intelligence regarding potential threats and advanced technology. What was their reaction? Did they just dismiss him as a crank? Laugh him out the door?
This is maybe the most chilling part of the whole narrative. According to Reich's records of that interaction, the Air Force officers weren't dismissive at all. They were described as burningly interested.
Burningly interested.
Yes, and even more strangely, they seemed not surprised. As if Reich's wild reports about atmospheric energy, DDOR, and possibly even the UFO connection somehow resonated with things they were already tracking or investigating.
Did they give any specifics, any corroboration?
There's one specific point mentioned in Reich's account. The Air Force officers apparently noted that they had independently observed unexplained atmospheric anomalies in areas heavily affected by what Reich was calling DDOR. Specifically, they mentioned that jet contrails, the vapor trails from high-flying aircraft, would often fail to form properly or would dissipate unusually quickly in these zones.
Whoa.
So the military was seeing something weird happening in the atmosphere in the same places Reich claimed were choked with DOR, something affecting conventional aircraft. It suggests the military, or at least parts of it, were aware of strange atmospheric energy phenomena that defied easy explanation, and Reich's framework, however bizarre, potentially offered a lens to understand it. It hints that maybe they knew something was going on, whether they believed in EO or not.
It's mind-boggling. The potential military interest adds this whole other layer. But ultimately, Reich seemed to believe the real battle wasn't just cosmic, it was deeply human, psychological. It comes back to his ideas about the armored person versus the little man.
Absolutely. For Reich, the external conflicts with the FDA, with the scientific establishment, even potentially with the EA, were all projections or consequences of humanity's internal state. The armored person is key.
Remind us the armored person is.
The individual whose natural life energy, their impulses towards love, pleasure, spontaneity, have been chronically suppressed from childhood onwards. This suppression creates that physical character armor, the muscle tension, but also psychological rigidity, fear of freedom, and often a transformation of that blocked life energy into destructiveness. That's the core of the emotional plague.
And the little man. That sounds kind of derogatory.
It does, and maybe it was, reflecting his immense frustration. The little man was his term for the masses, the average person dominated by this armor. He saw them as structurally incapable of embracing truth, especially biological or sexual truth, because it threatened their rigid defenses. They feared their own natural energy, their own spontaneous movement, and so they clung to authority, conformity, and often actively persecuted those who represented freedom.
It's a bleak view of humanity. He basically felt trapped. The external enemies were just reflections of this internal structural trap within human character itself. He literally wrote, "The trap is man's emotional structure, his character structure."
Exactly. He felt he wasn't being persecuted for being scientifically wrong, but for being biologically right, for embodying the very life energy that the armored structure is designed to repress and deny.
And this feeling of being persecuted for representing life itself led him to that really powerful, if perhaps grandiose analogy, the murder of Christ.
Yeah, that analogy is central to his later work, especially the book titled The Murder of Christ. He wasn't necessarily speaking in literal religious terms, but using Christ as a symbol.
A symbol for what?
For the archetype of the bringer of living truth. The individual who fully embodies and expresses natural, unarmored life, which for Reich was ultimately rooted in the free flow of biological energy, the capacity for full genital love, the orgasm function. He argued that history is a chronicle of humanity murdering this Christ figure over and over again.
So anyone who truly represents life and freedom becomes a target for the armored, plague-ridden structure.
That was his argument. The persecutors, the victims of the emotional plague, trapped in their own rigidity and fear, must destroy the proponent of life. And they do so by projecting their own sickness onto the messenger, inventing crimes that fit their own pathology.
Can you give an example of what he meant?
Yeah. He wrote it very bluntly. If they are cancer quacks, they will kill Christ for cancer quackery. Meaning the specific accusation used to destroy the life-bringer will always reflect the particular sickness or obsession of the persecutors themselves.
So the FDA attacking him over the accumulator as a cancer quackery device for Reich, that was just the modern establishment murdering Christ for embodying life energy, using their particular framework of medical control.
Precisely. The suppression of orgone energy was, in his eyes, simply the 20th century version of this timeless psychological warfare against life itself, waged by those terrified of their own biological core.
This internal conviction, this framing of the conflict, it explains why he approached the final legal battles the way he did. It culminated in the final act, the FDA injunction, and the court case he couldn't, or wouldn't, win on their terms.
Right. After years of investigation and harassment, the FDA finally obtained a sweeping federal court injunction in 1954. It essentially forbade the interstate shipment of orgone accumulators and related literature, labeling them fraudulent medical devices.
And Reich's response wasn't to comply or fight it narrowly on legal grounds?
No. Against the strong advice of his lawyers and supporters, he chose to represent himself in court pro se. He saw the courtroom not as a place for legal maneuvering, but as a platform to defend the science of orgone, to present his evidence about the cosmic energy, the DOR, the EA, the whole thing.
He wanted to put science itself on trial, not just his compliance with an order, an almost deliberately defiant stance.
It seems that way. He fundamentally believed the court had no jurisdiction over basic natural science. But the judge refused to allow that. The trial was strictly limited to one question. Had Reich knowingly violated the terms of the injunction?
Not whether the injunction was scientifically justified in the first place.
Exactly. The judge made it clear. The validity of orgone science was irrelevant. You can't just ignore a court order. Reich's attempts to introduce his scientific findings were shut down.
So he was trapped by legal procedure, unable to make his actual case.
He was. And in a way, it perfectly mirrored his theory of the armored little man. The system itself was too rigid, too bound by its own rules to engage with the potentially revolutionary biological reality he was trying to present. He was found guilty of contempt of court for violating the injunction.
And sentenced to prison.
Yes, sentenced to 2 years in federal prison. He died of heart failure in Lewisburg Penitentiary just over a year later in November 1957.
And shortly before or after his imprisonment, that's when the book burning happened, the final erasure.
Yes. The injunction also mandated the destruction of his orgone-related books and journals. Under FDA supervision, tons of his published works were systematically incinerated in New York City. It ensured that his controversial ideas, especially about orgone, remained firmly outside the scientific mainstream, leaving the ultimate questions unresolved, at least by conventional science.
Wow. What an absolutely incredible and ultimately tragic story. We went from psychoanalysis in Vienna to discovering a primordial energy, to fighting cancer biopathy, clashing with Einstein, battling the U.S. government, and finally, engaging in a cosmic war against hostile UFOs spreading atmospheric poison, all while claiming the military was watching with interest.
It's one of the most unique and challenging scientific narratives of the 20th century. Whether you buy into the specifics of orgone physics or the EAA, Reich's work forces you to confront some really deep questions. His core insight or challenge might be that devastating psychological critique.
And that fundamental division he saw in the universe. The life-affirming orgone energy versus the destructive, decaying nuclear energy, or DOR. Is the cosmos really playing out this battle between creation and decay? And are we, through our own societal and psychological armor, actively choosing the side of decay?
It's a heavy thought. And maybe the most provocative idea Reich leaves us with is that central tragedy. Is the human species structurally trapped? Trapped in an emotional character armor that perpetually causes us to fear genuine life, to misunderstand our own biology, and ultimately to persecute or murder those who represent the very vitality we crave, but are too afraid to embrace.
Are we hardwired to reject the cosmic life force, even if it's real? That's something to really chew on.
Absolutely. If this deep dive into Reich's censored world has sparked your curiosity, we definitely encourage you to seek out his original writings. Books like The Murder of Christ, Contact with Space, or even his earlier works on character analysis. Form your own conclusions.
There's so much more there. Continue your own deep dive into this fascinating, suppressed corner of science and history. You might be surprised where it leads. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.